I've got 5 ways for web designers to get leads without having to spend money on ads. Even if you had the budget for the ads, I usually recommend not spending money on ads for web design leads because it's sort of unfair. The big businesses like Wix and Squarespace and Fiverr and Upwork and all the businesses like that are sort of crowded out the smaller businesses like you and me. And so now the cost of our ads is too high because like they can run these big ad campaigns that get optimized and stuff. And then when you and I get in there and try to run our ad campaigns, we don't get conversions fast enough to optimize our ads. So our ads actually cost more, which is really unfair because we also have less money to spend on the ads. But even if people click on the ads, the people that click on web design ads, they're not looking for high ticket, long-term, recurring revenue, partnership style projects. They're looking for cheap websites, like for $500. And then you have to take the cost of the ads out of the project too, and you're left with just a couple $100. And I just don't feel like it's the right way to go. But I will say this, if you're looking to try to get more leads for web design, the first thing to do is pick your niche. Because if you don't know who you're talking to, how do you know where to find them? Or how do you know what to build? How do you know what to charge? How do you even know what to put on your website, right? This is such an important thing for me that I've actually started helping people pick their niche kind of live for free. So I put together a course. So if you go over to doublestack.net/authority framework, I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out. The authority framework is actually like a 5-step process to get leads. And the first step is picking your niche. So if you want to, jump over there and I'll help you with it. When you join the course, you'll see how to get in touch with me. And we can work together live to at least make sure that you know who you're talking to, like who your target audience is. So you know about your pricing and what to put in your projects and all that stuff. So check that out if you want to. But there's so much stuff that's just sort of unfair or maybe I should say like unexpected about getting leads for web design. Like one of the things that I think is particularly unfair is these big businesses have such an advantage over the smaller businesses, like we were talking about with the ads, but also like have you ever thought about Spotify, for example? Spotify launched in 2008. It's now 2024. So 16 years down the road, how many of those years did it take before they became profitable, do you think? They're still not profitable. They're thinking that this year might be the first year they're profitable. I think last year they lost like $475 million. That's a lot. $475 million in 1 year after being in business for, I guess at that point, 15 years. That's crazy, right? They're thinking that this year might be their first profitable year because they're putting more of an emphasis on podcasts, and podcasts don't have the record labels and stuff that take some of the money like the musicians do and everything. But like, I don't have that kind of money, right? So like, how are people like us, like we don't have the luxury of spending $500 million in debt for 16 years to try to figure out how to make things work. We have to figure things out faster. But what about the musicians on Spotify? Have you ever thought about them? So the whole reason people even join these streaming services is not to buy like generic megabytes of streaming or something like that. They want to get the music. So like the entire value of the platform is the music. Guess how much the musicians actually get to keep from the total revenue generated from selling their stuff? It's like 10%, maybe 10 to 12%. So almost 90% of the revenue that comes in from these musicians goes to marketing and distribution and not to them. That's crazy. What about authors and writers, like people that publish books? Have you thought about that? So those guys, you spend a decade of your life trying to learn how to write, how to do something worth writing about, publish a book, and they only keep like 10%, maybe even 5% for like if most of the sales are on those paperback mass media kind of distribution things, like 5-7%. So like over 90% of the revenue that comes in goes to marketing and distribution and other things other than the authors themselves. So like, I didn't realize that when I started my web design business. So my expectations were just completely out of whack. So much so that I almost lost one of my good friends. So I have a friend that he like knows everybody, and he's like really rich. He like makes well over $1 million. I don't know how much he makes, but I know it's more than $1 million a year. And it's this particular situation happened about 2 years into my business. This is like maybe 15 or 16 years ago or something like that. And we had just had our first baby. My wife was home, not working, so I'm like trying to support the whole family with a single income. And I'd run my business for about 2 years, and I ran out of leads. You know, it was weird because when I first started my business, the whole reason I kind of started it was I already had some leads kind of in the pipeline. Like people said, "Hey, Lee, can you help me out with some stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. Well, I'll start up a business, and that'll be the beginning of my business, helping these people out." And so I had friends, family referrals, and stuff for like 2 years, and then nothing. And then I just kind of ran out. I just hit this giant dry spot where I just didn't have any referrals or anything coming in. And I also had all this added pressure of the baby and my wife being at home and all that other stuff. So I reached out to my rich connected friend and I said, hey, I don't know what to do to get any leads. Do you know anybody that might want a website? He's like, oh yeah, I think I could find some people for you. I just want a 10% referral fee. And that really hurt my feelings. I didn't expect him to say that. I thought he could just help me out. And my mindset was that, wait, leads ought to be free. Because like the first 2 years of my business, I was getting free leads. And now he wants this 10% referral fee. And I'm thinking, well, my average project's like $5,000. And, he wants 500 of that. And that extra $500 would help me out a lot. And I don't even think he'd feel it. And so it hurt my feelings. It was just, it was a mess. But on top of that, it opened my eyes to the fact that I had no marketing budget. So then a little bit later from that, I ended up joining a mastermind group. My very first mastermind group, I spent $10,000 to get into this group. And the guy says, hey, Lee, what's your marketing budget? And I was like, I don't really know. I'm not spending any money on anything right now. I don't know what to spend it on. And he's like, well, how much revenue do you want to generate? And I said, well, I'd love to make at least $100,000 a year. He's like, well, you should have at least a $10,000 marketing budget. And so he was thinking 10% of the revenue should go to marketing, which was consistent with what my friend said. He wanted that 10% referral fee. And so like he was right, I was wrong, but I wasn't thinking about my business that way. I was thinking that all the money should go to me. I mean, I've got hosting and a couple of licenses for stuff or whatever, but other than that, all the money should come to me, right? Like I wasn't thinking about the artists and the authors or even app developers. Like you build a mobile app, you put it out there on iOS or Android. It's like those, like Apple and Google, they're going to take 30% right off the top. And then on top of that, I know that the average amount of the total revenue that app developers tend to spend is about 15% on ads and promotion outside of the app marketplaces. So they're putting like 45% of their revenue into marketing and distribution. And like, I'm kind of sweating 10%, right? Because my expectations just were, I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about running the business. I only knew how to code. I was good at coding, crappy at marketing and business and all that. I just didn't know anything about it. And I think that's a huge problem for a lot of web designers just getting into things. So anyway, if that's kind of where you are right now and you're like, well, I'm not sure what to do about this whole marketing thing. I don't really have a marketing budget. Well, let me give you 5 things that you can do to get leads without having to spend a lot of money on anything. And the first one that if someone said, hey, Lee, I don't have any money, but I need leads, what should I do? I'd probably say cold outreach is probably the best place to start. It's frustrating to do cold outreach because you only get like a 1%, maybe a 2% conversion rate, which means you reach out to like 100 people and you get maybe 1 or 2 responses. So that's frustrating, but it's also free. And so if you don't have money, then time is a good substitute a lot of times. And then you can get a couple of leads coming from it. So like you can do cold emails, you can do cold phone calls, you can message people through social media, just kind of reaching out to people. I would devote maybe an hour a day to cold outreach, at least an hour a day. Like if I really needed leads, I'd do more than that. But I would just take 10% of my time. And since I didn't have the 10% of the revenue yet, I would take 10% of my time and devote that to outreach. So, and I'll add to that one other thing too. When you price the projects, make sure that you're putting the cost of the client acquisition into the cost of the project, right? It's not just how much it costs to host the website and buy some licenses for WordPress themes and plugins and stuff. There's also the cost of what did it take you to get the client? And you want to make sure that you include that so that you have a profitable business. And I wasn't doing that. I didn't think there was any cost. I was just thinking I am the business. I'm not the business. Like when you think that you yourself are the business, you're just really doing freelancing. You're just creating a job for yourself. The much better way to think about the business is to think that the business is a business and I work for the business. Now I'm both the boss and the employee because I'm self-employed, but it's really helpful to think of it as 2 separate things. Like this is what the business charges and this is what I make. And I want to make sure that the cost for the business includes the cost of acquiring the client. And so 10% of your expected gross revenue is a good place to start for that. Well, the second thing that I would do, and the thing that I think is the most powerful way to generate leads on an ongoing, like basically like forever, is to develop your authority. And in fact, that's what the whole authority framework is all about. So again, I'm going to put the link in the description so you can check it out. So I won't go too much into detail right now about the authority framework, But again, the first part is you pick the niche first so that you know who you're talking to. Once you know who you're talking to, you can figure out, well, what are their problems? What do I need to say on my website? What should I charge? What should my solution include? Like all of that stuff becomes a lot easier to figure out once you know the context that you're working with, and once you know who you're working with. So check out that if you want to check out the authority framework. I got 3 more that I think are pretty important. Education is another one that I would put some effort into. And usually education costs a little bit of money. Like I probably spend maybe $10,000 to $20,000 a year on my education right now. And most of that goes to mastermind groups and just like small groups of people that I just connect in with. I used to do a lot of courses. I found that by the time something gets all the way down into a book or a course, that I've probably seen it already, because I've been doing this like 20 years now, and I've been doing heavy duty into marketing for like 12 years. So mastermind groups seem to be the most effective for me. So if you have some money to put into something, I would try to put some money into the educational side of marketing your business. And you probably want to put some effort into the educational side of doing your stuff too, but don't neglect the marketing side of it, because you're really doing 2 things. Like when you're a business owner, you're doing your craft, but you're also marketing your business. And so learning how to do that is just such a stress relief. So education is another big one. I got 2 more that I think are really important. Presentations is a great way to get leads, because that helps to build your authority, but also it creates relationships and a feeling of reciprocity. And you can find free places to give presentations. There's also paid places, like you can join B&I groups or a chamber of commerce or something like that. And I think there's a small membership fee for that stuff. And then you get to do presentations within that group. But if you put a little bit of effort into it, I found that you can find places that don't really have membership fees. Like where I live, there's like a local meetup group, like a local networking group that's not BNI or the Chamber of Commerce, just like local people, local business owners get together. And once a week, I think it's Monday mornings at like 7 o'clock in the morning or something really early, they all get together and they do sort of round robin presentations. And the cool thing for people like you and me as web designers is we sort of can do, like, the people that are at the networking group, they probably need websites and online marketing and all that other stuff. So like those could actually be your clients, and the referrals that they could bring in are also your clients. So you kind of are sort of double dipping in a way. Whereas most of the people in these networking groups, they're not trying to sell to one another. They're trying to get referrals from one another. And so if you join a group like that, it's a pretty cool way to connect in with kind of 2 sources of leads at that same time. And you can get to do presentations. And so just kind of looking for places to just do free things. Like I'll do presentations, like I'll do word camps and stuff like that are really helpful. And it's just anytime you get a chance to talk somewhere. Another thing you can do is you can do a podcasting tour. Like if you know your audience, then you can find podcasts that cater to your audience and then try to be a guest on those podcasts. And then that's a really great way to get yourself out there. And then the last one is partnerships. So partnerships, again, you got to know your niche. You got to know who you're working with. But if you know who your target audience is, then you can find other businesses that serve that same audience, but in a different way. Like, for example, let's say, just for example, you're working with home service businesses, like local home service businesses. And you could then say, well, what other kinds of businesses work with home service businesses? Well, what about bookkeepers and accountants and CPAs and tax preparation? Like all of that, or maybe even people that help people start up LLCs, like legal entities. All of those people have your clients as their clients. And so you could pass leads back and forth. Like if you've got a bookkeeper, who are they doing the books for? They're probably doing the books for a small business. And so you could say, hey, when I get small business owners, I'm going to pass them over to you for bookkeeping. And when you get them, pass them over to me for web design and marketing. And those partnerships are a great way to get leads for free. And if you find that it's going to be like a one-way thing, like kind of like with my friend with the 10% referral fee, I don't mind offering a 10% referral fee if I don't feel like I'm ever going to be able to send leads back in the other way. Like I had one of the partnerships, so I did all 5 of these things, by the way. I never want to recommend something that I haven't done personally. And when I did partnerships, I had a partnership with the company that created, so my niche was like holistic health services. And I had a partnership with a company that built software that was kind of like a CRM for functional medicine doctors. And I didn't really find, like by the time I got connected with the doctors, they already had their CRM. So like it was really hard for me to refer leads over to them. But I said to them, hey, anytime you guys have somebody that needs web design and online marketing, send them over to me. and I gave them a 10% referral fee. And so most of the projects were about $5,000, so I was giving them $500 to send me leads. And all that worked out really well. In fact, it was actually particularly good because before, like when I first contacted them, they were doing like $500 Wix tutorials for their doctors. So the doctors would come in, they say, hey, do you need a website? They say, yeah. I was like, well, let me give you an in-house lesson for $500 on how to build your own Wix website. So I said, hey, if you have clients that actually have a marketing budget and they want a website and online marketing and all the stuff, send them over to me and I'll give you the $500. Right? So they weren't losing money on the Wix tutorials and I was getting these great leads. So partnerships, I think, is a great idea, and it doesn't really require any upfront money. The worst case scenario is you have some kind of referral fee. So I think all of that is a great way to get leads, to build your authority, and it really does kind of hinge on picking your niche. So again, don't forget about the authority framework if you want to check that out. But if you want to see the results of all of this, check out what's going on with Joe over here. He's doing this whole authority framework thing and crushing it. So check that out. I think you'll love it.